In this lesson we will talk about this character builder, or rather just builder. I hope Maxon will rename this because it can be used for a lot of stuff other than just characters. Now the obvious question, what is builder? It is a template system which offers sets of predefined, pre-made parts that were made by professionals, of course, and those parts, let me just create that character object, and those parts are designed to be as simple to use and assemble, so even people without necessary technical knowledge can create complex rigs very quickly, which was practically impossible before release 13. Now, this really sounds too good to be true, so where is the catch? There is no catch. It is as simple as it gets, but to understand that even in such form, it will require a bit of mental work to wrap your head around it. And I also want to state before we begin with anything that this builder guy has two flavors. And by flavors, I mean one flavor where it is very simple to use, assemble and adjust those pre-made parts in really artistic fashion without any technical knowledge, or at least with minimal one. And the second flavor is where you actually have all the necessary tools to create your own templates and pre-made parts. So Maxon did a wonderful job with this builder because on one hand it offers a simple way for anyone to rig and animate complex setups, and on the other hand it offers a deep and comprehensive toolset for rigging professionals to create templates. And that complex system is actually hidden in this character component tag, which unfortunately you won't see if I don't do this. So this character component guy is really some hardcore stuff, and I will show you some of that later. Now let's scale this back somewhere around here, and actually we can even reset our layout so everything is just as it was. Of course we will mostly stick to using pre-made parts from templates, which I'm sure it will be far more interesting, but I will also show you how you can make your own template and pre-made parts on simplest example possible, since that stuff is quite complicated and it's really a technically challenging process. So I will give my best to explain that component guy, and now let's dive into this builder. The first thing that I want you to really imprint in your mind is that although this has everything to do with rigging, it's really that simple. So here under this character object you have four basic tabs, which are actually four logical categories or stages of creation of your character or anything that you want to create, and it doesn't fall into character category. So first you have to build something, then you have to adjust what you have built, then you have to bind it to a mesh. You can then animate what you've done. So let's first choose what we will build, and in our case I will now unhide this, and this is our female we modeled in project 1, and we will use an appropriate template for it. And in this case, this drop-down menu, there are quite a few of these guys. So there is an advanced biped or standard biped, and lots of other templates like bird, fish, insect, motion capturing and stuff like that. So let's go with the biped because we want a simple biped rig for our female character. So always choose a template which closely matches what you are actually trying to build. Now, every template contains components, and they will appear in logical manner as you start to add this part. So let me add a pelvis like this, and you will get a pelvis object here. Also, we got a few of little gizmos here in the viewport, and this master controller, which actually determines how our components are oriented. Now you see that spine component appeared and it was not available before. And that is because components will be made available, so these pre-made parts will be made available only if a certain precondition was met. So, for example, you cannot create a spine if you don't have pelvis. So, in that logic, you cannot create hands if you don't have arms. I'm pretty sure that is really simple to understand. So, let's add a spine also. You see, you can also choose between FK and IK splines. So, I'm sure that ones that watched Volume 3 can understand the difference. Let's go for spine FK. Now, don't let the fact that some of these components really don't match the polygon mesh or the character in height or scale. That is easily adjustable later, but as a good practice, always model your characters close to real scale value. So, for example, this female character is roughly around 166 centimeters tall, so that's a kind of a standard average height for a female. Now, if that doesn't work for you initially, here under character object, under this basic tab, prior to creating any of these components, you can choose the size of the character, and in the help file there is a standard scale of various things. So for example, here you have a standard scale for any given character. So you can also choose custom, and the sizes of these guys, these actual components, will then vary. But you don't have to bother yourself with that, because here under Object tab you can adjust these components as you wish. Now you probably saw that we got some other pre-made parts available here, but they're gone now, and this is an important relationship to understand. Our character object is selected, so we can only create a pelvis. If we select the pelvis here, we can create logical pre-made parts that are relevant to pelvis. So you can build a spine from pelvis. Also, if you continue down the road, relatively speaking, from the spine you can grow arms, legs, and head. Now you can follow common sense here and simply conclude that pelvis cannot be really added to a spine. So that's a bit of a logical contradiction, but think of it as a creative freedom. So you can create, let's say, 20 arms or 20 legs or 50 heads. It really doesn't matter. So from the template standpoint, there are some constraints, but there is also a lot of creative freedom. So you are not constrained to 2 arms, 2 legs, or within the boundaries of what human body dictates. I really hope that makes sense. Okay, so let's continue with adding components. So let's add arms, and you'll also notice there is a drop-down menu. So when this is available, you can simply choose various flavors of that component. So I will choose an arm, but I will hold down the control key because I want to have arms on both sides. So while holding control, you are creating symmetrical parts. So like this. And you see we will have to adjust those arms. And notice here, once I created them, they are both selected in Object Manager, and there is really nothing else that can be made from these arms. So if I want to create something else, I have to go back to a spine to create my head, for example. So let's create a head pre-made part, and once again, you cannot create let's say a second head from this head. You have to go back to a spine and create a second head, but I won't do that in this case. And what I want to have is obviously legs for my character, and let's hold down the control key and select this leg IK, because I want to have inverse kinematic chain on legs, so like this, and that's pretty much it. Once these parts are built, you'll naturally want to adjust them. So if you try to select something here, in the viewport, you will not be able to move anything. You see this axis is locked, and the reason for it is that this template guy is trying to minimize the user error here. So the only way you can move things, so the actual controllers, is to go into this animate mode. Now you can actually select controllers and maybe move these guys around or position them and actually influence the rig. But as you can see, we will have to adjust our components before that. So let's go first to front view, like this. We will frame our character roughly like this, and we will go into adjust mode. And once we do that, we will get these dots, and those dots are actually components. So the builder is now making things easy for us. So it hid all the joints and nulls and unnecessary stuff and gave us only these dots to work with. So you have to position them in their logical manner. So for example, this, if you hover over it, says left IK shoulder. So it has to be shoulder. And notice these guys are symmetrical. By default, you're adjusting these guys in symmetrical manner. You can uncheck that here. So now what is needed from you is actually to place these guys in their corresponding position. So you would go probably to top view, and one thing that I want to tell you is that here under display you can adjust the size of these guys. So if they are too big or too small, simply adjust them here. So now you actually have to select logical parts and rearrange them as you see fit. So something like this, and this process is a little bit tedious. So let me just skip that part and we will continue just after that. And here we are. I just spared you of looking at me positioning these guys, and one thing that I should probably mention is you want to position these guys on their logical position. So here is the knuckle, so this guy has to be roughly in the center of that knuckle, and these endpoints should be on the tip of your fingers. So that's really logical to understand. Now let me show you something that can be really helpful. For example, if I select this guy here, this dot, this component, and if I will move it, I will naturally move this complete hand. Now to avoid that and move this on individual basis, so disregarding the child objects, simply hold the 7 key and you will be able to do just that. Now do bear in mind that the symmetry will still work. So I'm holding the 7 key and symmetry is still working. Let's get back to our perspective view and we will continue. And now if you take a look at this adjust tab, you will see that here under objects, which we can adjust, we have components and we have controllers. So if I switch to controllers, only them will be visible in the viewport. So this is all by design to avoid cluttering in the viewport, and that dynamic change works also here in the tabs. So these menus inside change dynamically. So for example, here under display, now I can adjust this handles size like this, but as soon as I switch to, let's say, maybe build mode, that same attribute, that parameter, won't be available. So this is intentional. This is by design to minimize the possibility of user error and avoid unnecessary clutter. Now let's get back to our adjust tab, and here now you can simply adjust some controllers. So for example, let's say that you find that this controller is simply too large. You can scale it down. Of course, symmetry will work. Maybe you will be really nitpicky and want to rotate this guy just a bit. to match this vector of the hand. And of course you can scale controllers, move them and position them more precisely. So that's a lot of flexibility and freedom there. So we were adjusting controllers, and before that we adjusted components. Now these controllers are actually what you will use to animate your rig. So if you feel you need to change something, simply have fun and do so. And that's it. And notice how little time we spend to build and adjust all necessary things for our rig so we can bind this skeleton to our character. And since I really don't want the lessons to be long and tiresome, we will bind and animate our character in our next lesson.